What is up, y'all? I'm Jammin' Outdoors, and this is my channel. Welcome back, y'all, to the F100 build. So if y'all didn't see the last video, I got the truck in here, pulled the plugs out, did a visual inspection inside the cylinders, and then put some oil in there to lubricate it. We spun it over by hand, and then I got the electrical system fixed so we could actually turn the key and turn the motor over on its own. So that's kind of where we're at. Now we are going to try to do a compression test on each cylinder, see what those look like, and then do a carb rebuild because it's in desperate need of it. I mean, it's rough. There's rust and crap on it. So we're gonna have to do a deep clean on that. And then I got some new plugs coming. And once we get it running, I'll do an oil change. Hopefully we can get it done, hopefully soon. Hopefully running this week. Okay, so Morgan is being a big baby right now because she doesn't want to be in the nasty truck, which I just washed the seat cover, that little blanket thing, so it's better than it was. Anyway, we're gonna start the compression test real quick. I'm gonna thread it in.
Right?
Yeah. All right, go. All right. So that got up to almost 150 PSI. All right, go. All right. 150 again. All right. Okay. Holy crap, that one's almost 200. All right. All right. That was like 130, 135 probably. All right. All right. Around 125. All right. All right. Close to 150 again. All right. All right. 150. All right. Got over 150, but settling at 150. So that's pretty good. Only one that was relatively low, one that was really high. It's definitely in running condition for sure. So I got some new Motorcraft spark plugs and then some anti-seize. I'm gonna put a little bit on the threads and then I'm gonna throw it inside the motor. So before I put anti-seize on these spark plugs to put them in, I'm gonna check the ring gap. Around 0.04, just a little bit over. From what I found online, these 302s, their ring gap is around 0.04 to 0.05 stock. So this should be good, and I'm gonna check the rest of them, and then we'll put them in. Just a tad bit of anti-seize, just a little bit. All the spark plugs are good, so I'm gonna thread them all in. Plugs are in. All right, so now I'm gonna start breaking into the carburetor and start cleaning it. This one was not turning when I first got it, and so sprayed it with some PB Blaster, and it's starting to move now. This is what it looks like now. There it is. This is what the inside looks like. Good bit of buildup over here. There's some crap down in there. Can't really see it. This was frozen up. I had to spray some PB Blaster on it. Most of these were frozen up, so I had to pull these all out. I'm going to wire wheel all of them. And I'm going to see if I can clean this up really well. That crap on there. Alright, so I'm going to take the Dremel and clean these things up. I'm going to take sandpaper to that. Let's see what's in here. Holy crap. It's a pretty detailed piece of paper. Holy crap. So I got the main body strip, so I'm just going to start spraying it. I'm going to let some stuff sit overnight. So I'm taking these and I'm actually sanding them with the die grinder. And as you can see, it's pretty smooth. This one is still pretty raised. So that one is pretty close to being good. But I'm also flipping these over. And so like the fresh piece is going to be facing up towards where the fuel and air will be hitting, so it doesn't catch. But I'm also just cleaning that side up to just make sure that it's good. So it's the next day and I'm almost ready to assemble the carburetor. But while I was at work, I was talking to my boss and he recommended using the gallon container of parts cleaner. And he comes from a background of restoring classics, so I trust his opinion. And he normally used parts cleaner for the 2-barrel carbs, but I have a 4-barrel. So this doesn't actually fit inside of this gallon jug. So the closest thing I had was this can of acetone that was empty. So I cut off one edge and we'll see if it fits in there. So, oh yeah, barely. So I'm going to pour the acid in here. This should be good because this is metal, so it's not going to eat through it or anything. And then in the morning, I'm going to swap it with that. Unfortunately, the sticker might get damaged, but it is what it is. And I'm going to throw a bunch of this small stuff in there as well. So hopefully I can get this cleaned up and reassemble it tomorrow. Previously, I don't know. Pour it in here. Whole thing. There we go. Hopefully when I come back tomorrow, it's going to be crap free. So I'm actually going to use the blower to blow out some of these ports. And I'm also just going to take my, I think this is actually a tip cleaner for a oxyacetylene torch. Just try to get in all the holes you can. Just going to blow them out.
I'm gonna get some high pressure water and spray it off. But first, I'm gonna put this puppy in there.
There we go.
All right. So I'm gonna take the top out of here.
So on the inside of the ports, there's actually like a scum line kind of thing for the rust slash imperfections. So I'm gonna take the Dremel with like a buffing wheel and try to get that out.
Looks a whole lot better.
There's still a little bit of a line, but you can kind of see now it's a consistent polish basically. It looks pretty good. It should work out more than okay. Then I'm probably gonna take a Dremel on the wire wheel and basically try to clean out some of these areas. And then after that, I'll dunk it back in the fluid, rinse it off, and then blow it off again, and then assemble it. So here's the carb. This is as clean as it's gonna get without actually like vapor blasting it. But I think it's good enough. Now let's start assembling it.
So I'm gonna attempt to put this thing back together. So first I'm gonna put these things back in. This one goes in here, right here. As you can see, these screws actually like push against something, so you can tell it's going on the right direction. And everything looks pretty good. There's only one way the flaps can go on because it can't go any further this way, and they're slanted slightly like that. So they go on like that. And these are the ones that I sanded. So I'm probably going to put this upwards. The rusted part was actually facing upwards. So that's slightly pitted still. It's sanded really well, but I'm still going to face the basically the factory edge upwards. Just to make sure it's good. So one thing I'm going to make sure to do is actually put Loctite on every single one of these screws, so I know for a fact that these things will not come out and fall into the cylinders. Nice. This one came from this side. Pretty sure it was like this. Those flaps are good. Now I'm just going to try to work on this section. Can't really remember how it was set up. Gaskets down. Got the small ball, drops in the bottom of there. Then got this brass like square. That one in there. This puppy one right there, that gasket. Now going to put the sprayer on there. Gotta put this puppy back in. Now you gotta put this back in. I also have the instructions over here laid out. It comes with this very detailed breakup of the carburetor. So it's pretty easy to check to make sure you get everything. Gotta make sure the small one is on the right side. On the correct side, I should say, because not the right side, but I'll clean this one up. Those are tight. Probably do this plunger accelerator pump thing. So I'm gonna take this off. Gotta be careful because I think this thing's gonna break. Put these puppies back in. I think they were in around like 10. Something to right around there. I put this thing in, it's like these two jets. There is a gasket, this square piece of brass, and then a ball that goes underneath it. And that all bolts down. Then there are gaskets for under here, under here, under here, and under here. So I cleaned those surfaces off and then put them all in. Made sure to put this flap in first. There's a spring in here. Put a new gasket on this plunger. And then I started working on the top. So we got the choke working again. You got to make sure to offset it from the hole because that's what the bolt goes for the air cleaner. This puppy over here is the choke cable where it connects. Made sure to put Loctite on all the screws that are above the intake so they don't come out and fall in the intake. And now I'm going to assemble the floats. So each float has a bag. Okay, so you got that washer. Then you got the screen that goes in here to help filter. And that screws in. Snug. There's that puppy. So washer, screen, which if it's already filtered, I don't know why you need another screen, but you know, it is what it is. All right. Gonna clean off these floats a little bit. Go like this. Slide the pin in. So I'm setting the float height on the carb, and I'm looking at the instructions, and it's telling you can use a drill bit. It says 7/16, but then it also says the sides of the float should be parallel to the outside edge of the bowl, which that's pretty parallel, but you take a 7/16 drill bit
and it is not parallel.
And then also the float drop is 15/16, which I don't think I have. I'll have to actually just get a a ruler or measurement. Actually, they have this tool that comes with it. And I'll measure that, make sure that's 15/16. If not, I'll bend the tab that's on the back. There's a tab back here that controls where it stops, basically. It's supposed to go underneath. So I'm going to put it on top of the carb, like so. Then I'm going to put the floats back on.
So I'm actually going to readjust the floats. So one thing I'm going to do is actually make a 7/16 float.
So I made sure that a 7/16 drill bit actually fits underneath the front of the bowls. I was actually watching some videos, and that is exactly what they did. For some reason, the instruction says parallel with the top, but then also with a 7/16 drill bit underneath. So that's not parallel, but that's what they went with, so I'm going to do that. And then my drop is still at the 15/16. So we'll leave it at that. So let me go ahead and put this thing back together real quick. So I readjusted my floats to the correct height, and now I'm actually going to put the arm that goes to the accelerator pump back on. And the arm that goes from the choke.
This is the model 1405, and so the accelerator pump, the arm needs to be in the middle hole, and the accelerator pump needs to be sticking up 17/32 or 1.35 millimeters. So you got this measurement tool, so you can sit here and, put the arm in and figure out what you need to be at. And so I need to actually extend this arm so it pushes it in a little bit more. Like right now I'm sitting at almost 1 millimeter, just over 1 millimeter. So I need to just bend it a hair so it forces it up a little bit. Take a little hammer. Just bend it slightly. Do it one more time.
All right, it's good. So I got the carburetor back together. I think it's done correctly. I actually broke it down further than most people do. These rods don't normally come out because they're typically fine. But I had some rust on these flaps, so I had to take these out, sand them down, clean them, and I actually had to buff the actual ports out too, because there was corrosion and stuff. So there's not many videos on the reassembly over here, and these are self-explanatory, but these are under tension with springs, and so I don't know if this is correct. I mean, like, this is tight. I don't really know how and when this puppy hits, how this one is engaged. Is it like, I just don't know if this is right. But I'm gonna put it on and see. You can kind of do this stuff while it's on there, work with it. But everything else should be good. The floats are good. The accelerator pump is adjusted correctly. Most of the stuff is right around where it needs to be. So it should be good for the most part. I might have to, mess with this a little bit once I get it on. But like I said, I can't find any videos. This thing doesn't tell me about the orientation or the spring tension on these. It's not that complicated, but I wish I would have paid a little bit more attention and taken a little bit more videos before I disassembled it. But it is what it is. But let's go ahead and get the gasket and the base gasket, and let's throw it on the truck and put this thing on.
Let's wipe off the gasket surface. Gonna put the base gasket down.
Now I'm gonna take the carb, make sure the bottom's cleaned off.
Put that joker back down. Oh yeah, nice. Pretty sure I'm right there. You know, you went there. This one came right here from the top of the head. Choke. Clamp it back. Gonna hook up the throttle over here. Just pops on. Fuel line, which I may replace sooner rather than later. And now it's really, I don't know if it's supposed to be that violent though, to be honest. This over here has a lot of tension. Don't know if it's supposed to be like that or not. So I pulled the carb back off to try to figure out what I was doing wrong over here, and I figured out it was just this linkage. It was flipped around. So it's supposed to go like this, hook in here, and so when this opens, it starts pulling the secondary with it. And this is where you're supposed to get your measurement. You're supposed to be able to measure off this blade to the edge of the bore. I need to flatten this linkage a little bit so it actually gives me a larger gap here before the secondary starts opening. But that's the issue that I figured out that I did wrong. So all I gotta do is get the right measurement, which it's right here. Secondary throttle opening, it's 13/32 from this edge to the blade. But, you know, it's, as you can see, there's the measurement right there from the blade to the edge of the bore. But yeah, finally figured it out, thankfully. So I got the linkage hooked back up, and it's right around where it's supposed to be. So these blades open up around 1 millimeter away from the bore until the secondary start opening. That's how it's around where it's supposed to be, at least. So all we gotta do now is throw the carburetor back on. It's 100% good. Then we gotta hook everything back up for it. Then probably change some fuel lines probably, because some of those are rough. And then probably try to figure out whether it's got spark or not. And then I should be able to put fuel to the carb. Let's see. Oh. Yep, these lines are toast. Okay, so I pulled all the hoses off the fuel pump, and I have this one sticking out. I am also going to stick a small clear one into a gas tank right here, clamp it onto there, and so I can start seeing fuel coming up into the fuel pump, hopefully. I'm going to connect another clear one from here to the carburetor. She came out to help us.
I can go?
Yep.
Okay.
Keep on going. Hold up. It's not sucking fuel. Okay. All right.
Ready?
Yeah, you can see if we can get spark. All right. Not getting spark either. Okay, so I'm not getting fuel and it's not getting spark. So I think it may be the point on the distributor. I got this little arm up on one of the raised sections, and apparently it's supposed to be like 17 thousandths or something like that. I gotta look it up again. But I'm gonna put a feeler gauge in there, make sure it's good, and probably spray this out with brake cleaner just to make sure it's nice and clean, and then we'll go from there. I'm actually gonna try to pull the fuel pump off and bench test it real quick and see what's going on. Oh, there we go.
there's air coming out of the weep hole. Pretty sure there's not supposed to be air coming out of the weep hole. So, I'm probably gonna go buy a fuel pump real quick. It's like 25 bucks at AutoZone. So that's what I'm gonna do real quick. So I was checking the distributor point, get the gap, and there is spark. It's around the right gap too, so let's get Morgan to spin it over, and again, let's see what we see. Can you turn it over? All right, nothing still, so the coil might be bad, I don't know. So I pulled the coil out just to verify that this is not the reason for my no spark. So I got it on 200 ohms. I'm gonna test the resistance between the two main posts. That is the primary resistance. Looks to be around 1.8, 1.9, which is within spec, at least from what I've found. I couldn't find exact for this 302 or similar, but I think these are all pretty close to the similar for across all brands, as long as it's like one of these two posts. Now I'm switching to 20K and I'm gonna test the center to one of these outward posts. It's around 11,000. So again, that's around spec, at least what I've found. So I think that's good, so I'm gonna throw it back in and try to find out what else is wrong with this thing. So I just got back from the store and I got the new pump. So this is not much different. There's not a spring there like there is on this one, but for the most part, it's the exact same. And there is still air coming out of the weep hole, but it actually, you can hear the suction and it blowing. So this one wasn't faulty just because of that, but it was faulty because there was no suction. So I cleaned up the surface. It's ready to mount. I'm gonna put a little bit of gasket maker on the gasket, just a tiny bit to try to take up any imperfection. And I don't want this leaking oil or anything, so I'm gonna put some in real quick. So I got the gasket on. I put a tiny bit of RTV around the block side because there might be some imperfections in that surface, and I'm not gonna sand it down or anything like that. So I'm just gonna put a little bit there. Hopefully it should seal up good. And I put a little bit of grease on the arm as well. So I hooked it up, and as you can see, I cut that metal line back, mainly because it looked really stupid. There was a bunch of bends, and then it went to a soft line, then it went back to a hard line, then to another soft, and then a filter, and just stupid. So I'm just gonna do one soft line all the way up, or I might do a hard line. I mean, from there all the way up like it originally was. But for right now, it's just gonna be the way it is. So let's see if it starts pumping and gets fuel to the carb. But before I do that, I wanna talk about what happened with this. When I pulled this out, it smelled like gasoline inside the crankcase. So obviously it's a fuel pump, and so there'll be fuel around it. But one thing I was seeing online was some guys talking about these failing and leaking. So some people said that it would leak out that hole, the weep hole, but some people would even say that it would even leak out the back into the crankcase, which I'm wondering if that is the reason why inside of the motor smells like gas. I mean, this thing could have failed a while ago and still pumped, but have been leaking out the back. So hopefully this resolves any issues like that. I guess we'll see after this next oil change, and a little bit down the road, we'll see if it still smells like gasoline. So right now I'm gonna see if there's power on the actual coil. So I'm gonna put one on the positive terminal on the coil, and then on ground. And I have the key on, by the way. So 11.9 volts. So basically 12 volts. Probably should be better than that, but I'm charging up the battery right now. So the coil's putting out power. Next step is to take a spark plug and hook it directly to the coil. And you can lay it on the body, somewhere on the metal. You can hook to ground with an extra wire, and you can scrape ground. And if you see, I'll zoom you in on the spark plug, you should be able to see a spark coming from the spark plug. Just a little faint one. But it's there. So it is for sure something wrong with my actual distributor. I'm actually going to clean up the contacts a little bit with the little wire wheel.
So the points should be good.
This puppy is loose. That might have something to do with it. I'm going to see if I can hammer that thing back down and see if that helps. Because I don't think it's supposed to be like that. So I took it over the bench and hammered it down. Seems to be pretty good. So let's put it back in. And let's hope between that and cleaning off those, it'll run. Or it'll get spark at least. Should run. Should definitely run. Fresh carburetor, new fuel pump. Distributor's on there. Now let's see if the fuel pump pumps. Heck yeah, got fuel. All right, battery's been charging for a few minutes. Let's see if it does anything. Maybe in the morning it'll crank up. Let's see if it turns over now. So we got fuel hooked up. Everything else is hooked up, I think. A lot of smoke. A lot of the smoke is from the Marble Mystery Oil that got on the exhaust and stuff. I don't want to let it run too long because there's actually no coolant in the system, but I'm gonna let it run for just a second longer.
So I'm gonna put some water inside the cooling system. Now, I'm in Florida and it's springtime, so I do not have to worry about any freeze anytime soon. This is only temporary until I get this thing running and driving, and then I'll actually put real coolant in it. It's actually more than I thought there was in there. I thought it was completely empty.
Heck yeah, she's running. She's actually in gear too. There's no drive shaft, so it's just spinning the first piece of the drive shaft, which, you know, there's a little bit more noise than normal because of that. But if you push the clutch in, it's super quiet. Engine runs good. Honestly, the air fuel mixture screws, honestly, might be pretty good. I mean, it revs up great. I only put those in around what they were. I didn't put them to anything specific, but it runs pretty great. So the passenger side still has some smoke coming out of the exhaust. The driver's side is little to none now. Hopefully it all goes away in a little bit.
So I am so happy that I finally got the truck running. It's a huge relief. Obviously the next step is getting it running and driving. So this truck was originally a 3-speed column shift. Something broke along the line, I think, and they switched to a floor shift. And so there's some issue with the linkages and it won't get out of gear. So I have to hop underneath there and figure out what's going wrong. But that's gonna be for the next video, so y'all stick around for it. Catch you on the flip side.